I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. I want to thank everybody and welcome them to the regular Board of Supervisor meeting for Lower Gwinnett Township, May 24th, 2022. Tonight's meeting will be video recorded. We did have an executive session prior about personnel issues. We are going to be doing a different type of promotion and swearing in ceremony. We have a number of promotions and some swearing ins that are going to happen, and out of caution for all of the family members and guests involved, we're going to do it outside. So you can remain in the building and watch if you would like on the screen, or you can go outside to participate in the ceremony. So we're going to move on outside. Thank you.
I guess not.
You guys got the wrong night. It's tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh, they're coming out. Is this on? It's on. It's green.
Thank you.
It's not mine.
Thank you.
Ready? We're on. Welcome, everybody. This is a Board of Supervisors. We really have a few things we're going to say about them when we get going. But the township is governed by we have 5 supervisors in Lower Gwinnett, 4 are present. They're here upstairs, so we're going to try and keep it going. Before we start with the office for these guys, there's a little surprise that we have in order. I'd like to call our photographer for Mike Cantrell forward. All right, front of everybody. So I wanted to recognize Detective Cantrell tonight for a case that he investigated. And I'll give you just a little background of it. On Friday, January 21st, 2022, Lower Gwinnett police were called to investigate a robbery of a motor vehicle, which was stolen from a DoorDash driver while dropping off food in the township. The driver exited his vehicle and was approached at the front door of a customer when the driver heard a noise behind her and observed a male enter her vehicle and drive away. This was the 4th DoorDash delivery of the night. Detective Cantrell took over the investigation and followed it to the end. This investigation took 4 search warrants, 3 interrogations, over 30 reports, and over 3 months to investigate to come to a conclusion. Detective Cantrell was able to garner 3 confessions of all the actors involved. One of the suspects has already been held over for court, and the other 2 are pending trial. The investigation has been tied into a larger case that is still actively being pursued. It was through Detective Cantrell's dogged work ethic and countless late hours that these cases were successfully cleared and brought to trial. This case had a probability of solving at probably next to 0. But he didn't accept that, and he worked this case like crazy from the very beginning because this could have gotten earlier with some of the other things that we know happened later. This could have turned really ugly. Fortunately, it didn't, but this guy never gave up. So I have a citation here signed by the board. I'm not going to read that part because it's kind of like all that whereas stuff, but the whereas is what it says is you did a great job, and we're thankful. Thank you, Mike. Thank you. So moving on, next up, we back in January, we're back in 2021, we had a promotional exam for patrolman to sergeant, And Sean Sweeney was promoted to, come on up here, Sean, was promoted to street sergeant January 1st, 2022. COVID was high then as it is now, which is why we're outside. And Sean didn't want any recognition. He didn't want a big deal made about it, but we thought we'd embarrass him tonight. So we're going to have him take his oath of office again tonight for his new position as patrol sergeant. Sean's been with us since 2014. He's an excellent, excellent guy. And we're so proud of him. We're so lucky to have him here as a patrol sergeant. So Sean, awesome job, man. Thank you. With that, I'll call Judge Zaccarano forward and she can administer the oath to Sean. For just a little bit.
Sure. Okay.
Can you hold the mic? You got to talk pretty loud.
Yeah. Can you do that?
You need to at least raise.
Yeah.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, please state your name,
I, Sean Sweeney,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
the ordinances and regulations of Lower Gwinnett Township.
the ordinances and regulations of Lower Gwinnett Township.
I will uphold, obey, and enforce
I will uphold, obey, and enforce
the law
the law
without consideration
without consideration
to a person's race,
to a person's race,
color,
color,
sex,
sex,
religious creed,
religious creed,
sexual orientation,
sexual orientation,
age,
age,
national origin,
national origin,
ancestry,
ancestry,
handicap, or disability,
handicap, or disability,
and that I will discharge the duties of sergeant
and I will discharge the duties of sergeant
of Lower Gwinnett Township
of Lower Gwinnett Township
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. Now on to the main reason we're here. Since it reasons we're here, crowd is here. Do that. I'd like to back October, September, October, when we're doing the 4 board members standing here, they approve budgets, and budgets are big deals, and hiring officers is a big expense. But this board, I want to acknowledge that they came forward and asked, policing is changing in 2022. It's changing, we've all seen changes, and it's changing every day. And we're getting to where we need to do more to help people, which is a good thing, and not just be, locking up bad guys. So there's a lot of good things that police officers are asked to do, but to do that, we're still, we've been at 18 officers for a long time, but to do some of the things we want to do, we need, and this board has given full support to me, our police department. They've forward and not backwards, and not to the present day. We're looking forward to the changes that this board is asking our police department. And to do that, that's why we're doing this tonight. We're hiring 4 new officers. So I really want to acknowledge and thank the board. It's because of these 4 people that these 4 people are here. So thank you very much, each one of you. Thank you. So the process, how did these 4 guys get here quickly? It's not easy. Written test, physical test, there's background investigations. There was two interviews. I wrote some of the officers in the back that are here. I put a lot of, this department, it really is like a family. And I'm not going to get corny on you, but they do all get along. And they know what works, and they know what good people look like. Find good people, because that's what we need. We can train anybody to do this job, but if you're not a good person, it's not going to work, and that's not what we were looking for. So, took place in the interview portion of this exam. There's also residents, and right here, Bob Lawn. And I don't think Gloria, is Gloria online? Gloria, hi Gloria. Gloria Jones. Bob Lawn and Gloria Jones are township residents. Not too many conducted by residents. We got input. It was myself, the township manager, who's around here somewhere. Thank you. Self, Craig, and 2 residents who gave input. Knowledge and the wisdom that brought to the table was exceptional, and I really thank you for help. They've done it twice now, and successful outcomes all the time. And Gloria, thank you very much for your time. All right. So that led to these 4 guys getting here. Testing, polygraph test, psychological test, medical test, on and on and on and on and on. They're good guys. That's what we knew ahead of time. I'm going to bring them up one at a time. I'll tell you a little bit about each one. And I'm going to start, no particular order here other than my humor. John has come to us from Philadelphia. He's a Philadelphia police officer for 2 years, 3 years. He is joined tonight. His wife, Ashley, is here. And their little guy, I don't know your little guy's name. Grace? Grace. Thanks, Mike, for putting that in the notes. I'm going with John first for one reason. I've been in this man's company a couple times. I've watched the Zoom interview with him. You know, after about a minute of being with John Taylor, that he's the man. And he's also nervous man I've ever met when it comes to police interviews. Yeah, he has sweated through this whole ordeal. But I think I know why, because he wants it. And he sees something here and he knows it's special and he wants it. And I don't want to make him wait and go over for him. So, John, if you would step forward, if you have somebody you'd like to bring forward, I'll step aside here. The judge. Can you move back? Stay close to this entranceway with the microphone. John, you can hold it.
Microphone.
Give her the mic.
Put your hand on the bottom
Okay.
and raise the other hand.
All right.
Okay, ready?
Yes, ma'am.
I, please state your name,
I, John Taylor,
do solemnly
do
swear
solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United
the
States,
Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
and the ordinances and regulations
the ordinances and regulations
of Lower Gwinnett Township.
of Lower Gwinnett Township.
I will uphold, obey, and
I
enforce
will uphold, obey, and enforce
the law
the law
without consideration
without consideration
to a person's race,
of a person's race,
color,
color,
sex,
sex,
religious creed,
religious creed,
sexual orientation,
sexual orientation,
age,
age,
national origin,
national origin,
ancestry,
ancestry,
handicap, or disability,
handicap, disability.
and that I will discharge the duties of officer
I will discharge the duties of officer
of Lower Gwinnett Township
of Lower Gwinnett Township
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Congratulations.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it.
Next up, Kay. So Kay and he was the dark horse in this, because this man, after applications were submitted, now there's 17 departments get involved in testing. And there's a lot to the application. It's not easy. This man called us a week afterwards and found a mistake that he was not included in Lower Gwinnett's list. And it took a lot. You think about it, like he's calling, he's calling the lieutenant over there like, yeah, you guys made a mistake. I should be on your list, and I'm not. And it was a clerical thing. We didn't, he got dropped. But that stuck with me from the very beginning. It's very hard to get people to fill out an application and bring it back on time, let alone somebody that calls and says, you missed it. You missed me. Kane, the world is waiting for this guy to step forward. 3-year veteran of the U.S. Army. He's a hard worker. He wants to make a difference. And this is the home where he's going to make that difference. So I'm so excited that Kanan's with us tonight. He's with his wife and newborn. And I know when your baby was born, 2/22/22. So that's one that I remember. I don't, Ezra. So if you can come forward too, thrilled you're here. We're thrilled, excited. All right.
Put one hand on the Bible and raise your other hand. You ready? And repeat after me. I, please state your name,
I, K. Nix,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
and the ordinances and regulations
and the ordinances and regulations
of Lower Gwinnett Township.
of Lower Gwinnett Township.
I will uphold, obey, and enforce
I will uphold, obey, and enforce
The law.
the law
without consideration
without consideration
to a person's race,
to a person's race,
color,
color,
sex,
sex,
religious creed,
religious creed,
sexual orientation,
sexual orientation,
age,
age,
national origin,
national origin,
ancestry,
ancestry,
handicap, or disability,
handicap, or disability,
and that I will discharge the duties of officer
and that I would discharge the duties of officer
of Lower Gwinnett Township
of Lower Gwinnett Township
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Next up, John Dopp. John joins us also from Philadelphia Police Department. He's been a police officer in Philadelphia since June of 2014. John's an incredible police officer. I've looked at a lot of his career, and he brings a world of knowledge and experience that combined all of us here in Lower Gwinnett have not seen or done what this man has done. And all of his coworkers, every single person, dedication to work, dedication to his craft, dedication to the job. He's an incredible police officer, and we're very lucky to get him here. He's going to love it here. He's in for a different world, a good world, and there are a lot of good people. And we're excited that you're here with us, and you're going to lead the pack with that. We're really excited that you're with us, John. So thank you. Do you have somebody here you want to? My wife, Mary. Oh, there she is. His wife is here. Being video recorded also. John, you hold that. Hold that. You hold that.
Works about. Okay, ready? I, please state your name,
I, John Dobson,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
and the ordinances and regulations
and the ordinances and regulations
of Lower Gwinnett Township.
of Lower Gwinnett Township.
I will uphold, obey, and enforce
I will uphold, obey, and enforce
the law
without
consideration
to
to a person's race,
a person's race,
color,
color,
sex,
sex,
religious creed,
sexual orientation, age,
national origin, ancestry, handicap, or disability, and that I will discharge the duties of officer
and that I will discharge the duties of officer
of Lower Gwinnett Township
of Lower Gwinnett Township
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Congratulations.
Thank you, man.
And last, we have Dennis Cosgrove. Make you sweat a little. Yeah, definitely. So Dennis joins us. He is going to graduate the police academy in about 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I picked Dennis to go last for no other reason than wait to hear his voice. He's got a brogue to him. Told me I wouldn't understand his mom. Maybe we should have her come up and take. Dennis, his background, people realize real quickly that he's a people person. He has a big heart and he cares. And he mentioned in some of his background that he wants to get involved in schools. He wants to be, a role model for children. Some of his past jobs, parents recognize quickly that he's a good person and they trusted their kids with him, and that says a lot to you right away. This guy's going to be a star here. He's an incredible personality. Hopefully you'll all join us later and you'll get time to sit down and talk. And his mom, we're going to sit down and have a cocktail together. After I change, I shouldn't have said that on Zoom. I better stop now. Yeah, sorry. So anyway, Judge.
Well, is she going to come up? Does she want to come up? This. Ready? Place one hand on the Bible. Raise your up. State your name.
I, Dennis Cosgrove,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
and the ordinances and regulations
and the ordinances and regulations
of Lower Gwinnett Township.
of Lower Gwinnett Township.
I will uphold, obey, and enforce
I will uphold, obey, and
Dennis, I know this is Dennis's fiance. We can kill one stone tonight. The judge is here. There's a lot of witnesses. With that, really, I got to stay close to the door. I want to thank all the friends, family, officers, everybody who came out tonight to show support for these guys. This is a huge night for our department. It's a real big night for these guys, one that they will never forget. What a great night to be outside. It's a shame, these supervisors have to go inside and they'll get out of here around 10 o'clock tonight. So thank you all. And that's it. Good night. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute break.
I just wanted to, I didn't get a chance outside to welcome our 4 police officers to Lower Gwinnett Township. We thank them so much for all that they will do and for the promotions and the recognitions. And we're greatly appreciative of Detective Cantrell, as well as Staff Sergeant. Next up on the agenda, we have the receipt of the minutes, April 26, 2022 minutes. Have we gotten a chance to read?
Have?
Yep.
Any questions on the board?
No.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
Motion is carried, and we have accepted the minutes, April 22nd, 2022. On to the receipt of the minutes for May 10th, 2022. Are there any questions from the board? There are none. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next up is the receipt of the invoice history for April 2022. Have you guys gotten a chance to review the invoice history for April 2022?
Yep.
Is there any questions from the board?
No.
All right, questions from the public? Not. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
The second?
Second?
All
Oh, I'm sorry. Apparently your mic is not on.
Oh, you all can you hear me now? I apologize. Okay.
We're on.
Well, I think you guys have missed some, but we're on to the receipt of the invoice history, April 2022. Did we get a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Accepted the minutes. I believe the financials were not available.
Yeah, so we're going to have to table them. They were not available at the.
Okay, so the January
For this meeting.
2022 through March 2022 financials were not available at the time. This manager's report in this meeting, so we will table that. Do I need to make a motion? I'm gonna make a motion to table the financials and the yield-to-date balance sheets. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I've tabled that. Next up, we have a land development in front of us, Precision Watches.
Danielle, I'd like to ask a question.
Yes.
Why are the financials not available yet?
I do not know. I don't, that's a question for the
I
township
was
manager.
Asking.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were asking me.
At this point, I asked the finance director for the financials and he said they weren't ready at this point. So.
Okay.
Thank you. Next up, land development. I think we have Kristen Pianza representing Precision Watches.
I'm sorry. I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Good evening.
No worries.
Kristen Pianzio from Hamburg, Rubin, and Maxwell.
Excuse me, Kristen. I'm sorry. Can you get the microphone?
Thank you. I'm Kristen Pianzio from Hamburg, Rubin, Mullen, Maxwell, and Lupin, representing the owner. Thank you. I saw you 2 weeks ago where we explained this project and talked through any of the issues that the board had or that staff had. We're very excited to get this project underway. Your solicitor did provide me with a draft resolution. My client has agreed to the terms. He has signed it and submitted it to the township. So we are hoping that the board votes in favor of that this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board? I think the resolution is up in front of us for the public. Are there any questions from the public? I don't know. I can't see if there's any online. I'm assuming no. No. Seeing none, so we have before us resolution for the preliminary and final land development approval 21-03 LD for Precision Watches. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Next, we have an update from Gilmore. Or it's around the flood study that was being performed on the Wissahickon School District property related to some flooding that we've experienced. Turn it over to Jim Hirsch from Gilmore.
All right, thank you. So as the board's aware, the township received a DCED flood mitigation grant in the amount of about $50,000 to complete a study for this drainage area here. Up on the screen, I have the FEMA flood map of the area with a circle around where the flood study area. It's essentially Houston Creek. You'll note that it's in flood zone A, which FEMA denotes as an area in the 100-year floodplain with no base flood elevations determined. If you look across the railroad tracks in Whitpain, there are little cross sections at each interval here, and those have elevations on them. So if you look at and you want to know exactly what the flood elevation is at this point, then you can take a look at that and know that it's at that elevation. There is no such elevations on our side because FEMA did not do a detailed study to develop these lines here. So what I want to do is kind of go over where we're at with this, where we're headed next, and answer any questions that you might have. We're about 50% complete from a budget standpoint. We do have a ways to go yet after tonight. So Jamie, if you can flip to here. This is an aerial map showing the entire drainage area to this creek here. Down here is Ambler Yards. And then this point up here is the top of the FEMA delineated floodplain. At the top of that floodplain is a Gabion Dam that's located on the school district property. So what we did was we used LiDAR contours. They're at 2 foot intervals over this entire watershed to look at what drains where. So the totality of that magenta area delineated there is 280 acres. And that is what ultimately drains to a culvert that is underneath the SEPTA tracks down here at Ambler Yards. So when I said FEMA doesn't have detailed study information, essentially all they used to develop this floodplain line here is they used the LiDAR contours to get generic cross sections of the creek, and then they have estimated flows to different points within the creek. The dam is one study point. A culvert under Knight Road is another study point. Down here, there's a culvert under Spring Garden. And then essentially there's a total flow to the culvert that goes underneath the SEPTA tracks. So what we wanted to do and what we needed to do in order to develop a more accurate existing model so that we can then decide what are potential improvements, what benefit they can have on altering the flooding that's experienced throughout the watershed is get detailed survey of different obstructions and culverts within the creek channel. So we didn't have to do any survey on Ambler Yards property because we were able to get information from Ambler Yards as far as what exactly the culvert situation is through Ambler Yards. So, I mean, at the end of the day, the best way to describe what's going on in Ambler Yards is that a development was built on top of a creek. So there was a natural creek channel there at one point, and the development was built on top of it. So the creek is piped through their parking. It's piped under building 19. It then daylights for a bit and then goes underneath the SEPTA tracks. Some pictures that we can go to now would be good. Okay. So that picture there up top is the Ambler Yard side of the culvert underneath the SEPTA tracks. And then the picture on the bottom is a little bit further up looking towards the tracks. So this is essentially it's a creek here. And so there's always water in it. There's always base flow in it. And there's a bridge built over it to access each side of the rear of the Ambler Yards property. Jamie, can you now one more? Keep. Oh, okay.
Jim,
There you go.
Jim, when you say it was developed over the creek, not Ambler Yards, but what predated Ambler
Yeah,
Yards,
no, I'm
right?
sorry.
So it's been, no, I just want to make sure.
No, that's a good point of
It's been here
clarification.
for.
Ambler Yards did not create, the owners of Ambler Yards did not create the situation. They inherited it. It's a lot of what is going on here is just development over time. There's really gonna be no overarching theme is that there's no one person or entity that created this situation.
Jim, or the buildings that now are currently Ambler Yard, was that development put in before the communities around it were built, or was it all about the same time?
I would have to look into when the initial development of that site was.
Yeah,
to make a
I'm just
comment on
wondering if there were not houses where they are now, if there was a more less of a problem with the water drainage when I think it was a chemical building was put in there.
BASF, I don't know.
It was Amchem, Henkels and McCoy, and then it was it BASF, I think.
BASF's what I knew it as before Ambler Yards.
I think it started off as Amchem.
Amchem.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Amchem, then Henkels and McCoy, and then BASF.
They may very well have developed together just as a result of a symbiotic relationship. The plant needs people to work there, and the people need to be able to get to the plant.
Yeah,
I think
And that was
I
common
think the
in
oldest
that.
houses on our street are the end of the 60s, like 1960, I think.
We have access to some historic aerial photography, so we can kind of just keep going back and sort of see when things were built.
But yeah, I know. Obviously, I wasn't alive, so I can't say for certain.
Okay. That picture there is the backside of building 19, where there's three 36-inch pipes that carry the creek underneath building 19, and then they discharge to this area here, which is we were just looking at from a different view in the previous picture.
So the actual creek is just going through those three 36-inch pipes?
Yeah.
And being discharged there?
Yep.
This is the whole creek?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just making sure I understand.
I suspect Amchem probably needed the water, and this was the easiest way to get it without having to pipe it in somewhere. So they just built right on top of it.
That's definitely a potential there for sure. In extreme flood events, as I think everybody knows, the entire creek is not in here. This is all inundated with water.
I know it is.
Jamie, can
is that something that, I mean, I recognize that this happened many decades ago that this was built, but that seems like something that EPA would not allow.
Not by today's standards. You would never be able to enclose a creek or waters of the Commonwealth, but a lot of these situations happen before the regulations. Can you go back to the map for a second, Jim? So the area we were just looking at is down here, and those 36-inch pipes go underneath that building there, and then it switches to some other kind of configuration, but it's still a closed culvert all the way. It daylights a little bit on each side of Spring Garden, but there's a culvert under Spring Garden. So that was not included in FEMA's study. So we went out and we surveyed that. That's where the scope of our survey kind of begins. And then we got cross sections, a few cross sections in this area here to just compare to what FEMA had with their assumed cross sections. And then as we come up here along Brookside, we located a number of what we'll call bridge crossings or obstructions in this green area here. There's at least two. There's one driveway that for a house on Marion that kind of like comes, it's a rear loaded garage situation. So that crosses there. There were at least two we'll call pedestrian bridges. One seemed a lot more permanent than another one, but there's another one of those, and then there looks like there might have been like another driveway that is probably like it's abandoned now.
Mhm.
Doesn't look like anybody's used it in a while.
Mhm.
I refer to that as it's just a slab. It's a concrete slab on two footings on either side of the creek. So there's some obstructions there. If you want to go to the keep going down in the pictures. One more. This is a footbridge. This is the more permanent one. It is right up there. It looks like it's on 450 Marion's property. It's only about 25 feet downstream of the crossing on Knight Road. So there's that one there. And if you keep going in the pictures, this is the slab that I talked about. It's right next door to that. It looks like it's on 448 Marion. You can't really, this is not a great picture, but then this is the other driveway bridge. That's right next to that one at 446 Marion. This one, it looks like it's actively used because I saw some cars parked in the rear of that property that would have no other way to get back there. And then I don't think there's a picture of it, but one more house down, there's another footbridge that is, I'll call it less permanent than the first one. The first one was bolted down. I think that the one, maybe the next one down could be moved if it was gonna rain really hard. So what we put all of that information into the model to sort of build an existing situation. If you go back to the map, James. Yeah. So aside from there's an underground stormwater basin in Ambler Yards that they installed as part of their redevelopment five years ago or so. There is a small stormwater basin on the corner of Knight and Houston. It's right next to the school district's admin building. And then there's the dam, which is my understanding was built as a stormwater management feature when the school district built the middle school. Aside from those three features, what we have is 280 acres of fairly dense to very dense development with no stormwater management controls to provide rate reduction in extreme rain events. And rate reduction is what we would be looking at as a way to alleviate flooding. Volume reduction through infiltration is something that you can look at on a smaller basis, like on a per site basis. But like when we're looking at something this large, we're looking at how can we hold back the water and meter it out so that instead of there being 450 cubic feet per second in that channel, there's a little less. So, what I
just
want
have to slow the flow of water.
Slow it down,
rain
yeah.
events.
And I picked 450 cubic feet per second because that's what the calculations show go to the dam in a 100-year flood event. And if you convert that to gallons per minute to kind of help some people sort of put it in their head, that is 200,000 gallons a minute in a 100-year flood towards that dam. So, I mean, we're talking about an exorbitant amount of water.
So you're halfway through the study. Obviously, you haven't reached any conclusions, but it sounds like one of the things we're going to have to talk about is finding more ways to slow the flow of water, whether it's pockets of different.
Yeah. So what I've been looking at here is sort of kind of like you see the neighborhoods that are along Brookside, Francis, Marion, Houston. I mean, there's really no space in there, no open space in any of those areas. There's actually a decent part of Ambler here along Mount Pleasant that kind of drains towards storm sewer Mount Pleasant and then makes a turn down here and like dumps in at Knight Road. But this area here, very densely developed, not a lot of space. There's a bunch of, while the lots are bigger, there's still a lot of houses in through here that are developed.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I know, and I'm not sure of the year, 2016, maybe 2014, FEMA upgraded or changed some of the designations from like X, Y, Z to A. I know that we were X previously, prior to whenever that was changed. And then they made me aware that we were A, but not the entire street. So I have neighbors who are not A. And so they're saying one side of the street is more prone to the 100-year flood. I mean, they basically said to me, at the designation of A, it means you will be a part of a 100-year flood. But people closer to the Spring Garden culvert do not. And I don't know if it's because it's behind their house. The creek is technically behind their homes as opposed to in front of their homes.
Yeah.
So, and they said that they didn't do a lot, and this is me talking to FEMA, they didn't do a lot of actual surveying, I guess.
They didn't do any surveying.
Okay. I didn't want to say that, but they didn't.
No, I mean, we requested their information and they gave it to us. It's a statement to say that
they didn't
accurate statement to say they didn't do any surveying.
So is part of what you're doing going to make, I guess, a better prediction of if their home's in danger, as opposed to just giving the blanket designation of up to this house, you're A, and then after this house, you're Y or X?
I think that if out of this study comes some kind of major stormwater improvement, then after that stormwater improvement is implemented, you could look at approaching FEMA with
for a reduction
all this information and redoing the flood maps. But you can't. The scope of the study was never to alter the floodplain, because there are you can do that, but that's not what I think is happening here.
Yeah. Okay.
So with an improvement, then yes.
And just for clarification, because I know that there are some residents on Francis who are experiencing the flooding, and I don't know if it's coming from Knight Road or if it's coming from another direction, but the water is kind of coming through there from Brookside through the backyard to affect people on Francis. Is that indicated in where that like magenta line would be?
So this magenta line here, everything in this side of it drains down this way, right?
Okay.
It's eventually going to get there. The contours could show that like Francis, these houses on Francis drain through the houses on Brookside and then like eventually down this way.
Gotcha.
Like, is that kind of the flow that you're seeing?
Some of the people, and it's down towards where you don't have it within the magenta line.
Oh, okay.
Down there,
here.
it's saying from Brookside, it's coming towards Francis and damaging their trees in the back of their property.
Okay.
And I just wouldn't, where would that be draining to?
Well, there's a few small little
cutouts
pipes that go underneath the railroad back here at this part of Ambler Yards. But then if you go back to the flood map, at some point in here, there's a drainage divide and like everything goes, this stuff goes this way to this channel here.
Oh, gotcha. To the Rose Creek.
In Ambler, yeah.
So you can't make any assumptions, I guess.
But I would be interested in getting more information about those people on Francis to make sure that our line is correct.
Okay, that's what I was gonna, all right.
It appears, Jim, from this map, that the biggest area, the least densely populated area is the school district property. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. Or is it not because the amount of surface?
Right up in here, right?
Oh, by the wood.
Yeah, so like what I have here is this green line, and like eventually our next step is to look at places where basins can be put, or can that modifications to that dam happen to achieve a rate reduction that like we believe would have a measurable impact on the flooding here? Because at a certain point, if spending a lot of money here is going to affect the floodplain by 3 inches, you got to make that decision. I mean, that's a board decision or but I guess there's 2 things that you could do to the dam. There's a multitude of things you could do to the dam, but we could, right now there's 1 pipe at the bottom. If you can go to the dam pictures. All right, so here, this top one is the back side of the dam. So this is the downhill side. And then this other one is the uphill side. It's hard to see, but at the very bottom here, there is 1 pipe. It's an elliptical pipe. It's about 3 feet high by 3.5 feet wide. And that is the only method of metering water out of there. So a more conventional or a newer design would be a multi-level elevation, multi-level outlet structure with weirs at different levels to let out water and eventually, essentially get more bang for the volume that you have behind here. Another option is to remove volume or soil from back here to create more volume behind the dam. I don't know that making it a whole lot higher is gonna help, but like at its highest point here, it's like 13 feet, but then like you can see as you come this way, it feathers up to there's only like 4 feet here. So you'd be doing some soil excavation behind the dam to provide more of a volume for impoundment, and then coupling that with some kind of multi-elevation outlet structure to be more efficient at getting water through.
Is there a fence around that? I'm sorry, Mike. That seems really unsafe.
It's fine.
What seems unsafe?
To have essentially what would be a lake when I mean, maybe it is a lake now, but it just seems very unsafe.
There's barriers on it.
That was my sort of question. Is that a choke point so that when we get a huge rain, it does sort of form a lake right there? Or is it, I mean, because
I would venture I mean, the models show that in an extreme rain event, water is overtopping the top of this dam. So
it is.
That's, yeah.
It goes over top of it.
I would imagine it does. The models show it going over top of the dam in even like moderate rain events.
We might think if there's some place to do it, going upstream before we get to that point.
That was going to be my next question. Is there any other place upstream?
If you go back to the map, please. So one thing we're definitely going to look at is there's this existing basin over here next to the admin building. It's not very large. I think there's a potential to at least double it in size. It's not a huge drainage area right now. I think it's about 15 acres. The water from this area here uses a channel under Houston and then essentially bypasses the dam. So like anything we do here to choke back water would be equivalent to anything that you did in the dam to choke back water. Then up in here, I mean, there's land in the school district's property, but it's used. I mean, they get the track here, the middle school track here, they get some baseball fields. I think there's a soccer field down underneath there.
It connects to the track.
Yeah.
There's a soccer field down below.
So there's space, but I don't know that it's space that they would be willing to or could even give up. So if it's not space they can give up, then the detention would have to occur underground. And that's a lot higher cost than the surface stuff is.
When do you anticipate being done?
I would say 2 months.
Okay, just curious.
Yeah, I mean, I want to I got some ideas on how to move forward. I want to talk to staff. I want to run that stuff by Craig. And at a certain point, we need to loop the school district in. I haven't spoken to them really at all about this. So we want to get them involved because they're obviously a major player. I don't see, so then there's also this big part.
That's what I was going to say.
Yes.
So all the way up to Aileen Road, and I guess that's like Judy, and I'm not sure how far back it goes, Roberts and Merrill, something. All of that is affecting.
Yes.
All of that is coming down to our creek.
Yeah, so there's a pretty big culvert underneath Bethlehem Pike here. This property here used to be Dr. Booth's dental practice, and then there's like an open area here next to the meadows.
Yeah.
I know there's been talk in the past from, I think the school district had a consultant look at like what could happen where, and they looked at this piece here. I mean, certainly a basin could go there, but from an area standpoint, like it's less, it's like about half an acre. So it's not a huge space.
It may be part of an answer though, right?
Yeah, I think the ultimate answer to this is multiple things. I think we got to look long and hard about removing or altering these obstructions. I think we have to look at what can happen with the dam, if anything, and then what other smaller improvements could we make within the watershed to kind of try our best to reduce as much as possible.
Okay. So if we have to install something underground, that's like a large underground cistern, and it would, and it would allow water just to seep into the water table around.
Yeah, there'd be an infiltration component. It'd be a lot of collection, retention, and then slow metering out also. Yeah. Whether you can get it in the ground is a lot about what the underlying soils are like. And being that close to a stream, you might have poor, and near a floodplain, you could have poorly draining soils.
Right, but upstream, which might impact the real bad areas downstream, that might be part of an effective answer. I mean,
sure.
I don't think we're going to have one magic bullet for this. I think it's because of the density of the surface buildings.
Okay.
I agree.
Thank you so much for the update. I know that there are people that have questions, maybe. Are there any other questions from the board? Are there any questions from the public? If you could just come up and state your name and address.
Hi, Iris Farag, 1208 Carriage Circle. I'm just curious because we all know what water does. How was this area determined as an issue? And will we be looking at whatever we decide as the solution, how it affects a larger area? Because water is going to go somewhere. How will it affect the surrounding area?
I'm not the expert.
We determined that it was an issue because the people on Brookside have been complaining about flooding in their house for 17 years. Okay. So we engaged Gilmore to try to figure out the why. And then once we figure out the why, to come up with solutions. And obviously, any solution that Gilmore comes up with or proposes, they'll realize whatever the impact is elsewhere. To your point, right? Water has to flow somewhere. It will flow downhill to get to a source. Right. So I don't know if we have them, but there's videos of some of the flooding down Brookside.
Right.
No, so yes, I mean, that's how we identified it.
Good.
And how we're trying to solve it, I guess we'll know in a couple months. We'll have some proposals.
Good. When he said they hadn't done any studies in forever, and he really.
I think he was talking about FEMA. Yeah, he was talking about FEMA and how they agree. Yeah.
So I guess I'm just concerned that there are another issue somewhere else in the town.
When we know about them, when people call and tell us about them, and that's how we know. Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
It's just sometimes it's good if you're fixing it to look at bigger.
Totally. Yeah, agree. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the public? Are there any online I can't see? Okay. Thank you so much, Jim.
To the lady's point, I think that if we can figure out, if Jim can figure out how to address this really severe problem, then we'll have tools in our toolkit to go look at other places in the township. So that's a really good point. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have an update by McMahon Associates on the Township's Act 209 plan. Is it the Act 209 plan or the transportation impact fee? Is he doing both? You're doing both. Hi, Chad. Please.
Wanted to give you an update this evening on a project that was first talked about back at the beginning of 2020. As everyone's aware, the township has a transportation impact fee, which it assesses to new development based on the amount of afternoon peak hour traffic it generates. The original, the impact fee process and regulations is governed by the state municipal planning code. In order to establish the impact fee, the township had to go through an initial set of studies to arrive at what the amount of the fee would be per trip. Back in 2020, we had proposed that the township do a major update of the original studies that were completed to establish the impact fee to take into account transportation improvements that have been done over time, in addition to new development pressures that the township expects to face in the coming years. I realize back in 2020, we had a couple new board members coming on at that time, and now had a couple more new members come on since then. So just wanted to give a very quick overview of impact fees and then talk about what the next steps are. If the project goes forward, we'll be back in front of you many more times to discuss the fine details of how this all works. But impact fees are generally used for the types of improvements that you see on the screen, primarily adding new traffic signals, turning lanes at intersections, modifying existing traffic signals, adding through lanes for a corridor, or potentially in some cases constructing new roadways. With the township's impact fee program, since its inception, the improvements that were identified in the original plan, there have been several that have come to fruition over time, either through the completion by PennDOT, developers, or the township. And just real quick, adding turning lanes at intersections along Welsh Road, Summingtown Pike, and also Norristown Road, and different traffic signal improvements over time. So these are the major steps that are needed, whether you're adopting a new transportation impact fee or doing a major update, which is what we had proposed to the township back in 2020. It's 5 major steps. One is to establish an advisory committee, which I'll get into a little more detail next. And then 3 major studies or reports. One, the land use assumptions report, which develops or which projects new land development or redevelopment over the next 10 years. We take that land use information and do basically a township-wide traffic study of major intersections to identify improvements that will be needed. The capital improvements plan assigns a cost to those improvements and calculates what the per trip fee is. And then an ordinance is either adopted or if you already got an impact fee revised to reflect the new per trip fee. So the first step in the process, which is appointing the advisory committee. Go to the next slide, Jamie. The MPC provides very specific guidelines that the township must follow to appoint the advisory committee. It's done by resolution by the Board of Supervisors. The committee must consist of a minimum of 7 members, a maximum of 15. 40% of the committee must be representatives from the development or real estate community. And those folks can either live within the township or do development or real estate business within the township. All the recommendations and the studies pass through the advisory committee to the governing body, and the advisory committee provides recommendations to the Board of Supervisors for approval of the various reports. They provide direction to us throughout the process, and in terms of the scope of the major update, we've identified approximately 6 meetings and 2 public hearings that the advisory committee would be involved with. So back in 2020, when the board initially authorized us to move forward with the major update, that was before COVID started. So the project has been on hold since then. We feel we can move forward with the project now, based on where we are since 2020. Appointing the advisory committee would be the first step in that process. Once the committee is appointed, the land use assumptions report can begin, and then the traffic work would begin in earnest in the fall and winter of this year. So I believe tonight we're asking for consideration from the board to work with staff to identify candidates for the advisory committee for consideration by the board and eventual appointment of the committee. Last slide. If you're looking at a good cliffhanger, book you can't put down on the weekend. If you want to know a lot more of the finer details of the impact fee process, PennDOT has a publication that has tons of information if you want to look into it before the next time I get back to you. So with that, I can take any questions that the board may have.
I wasn't here in 2020, so this is new to me.
Sure.
We have a transportation impact fee now.
Correct.
And we will have a transportation impact fee after. Correct. So my question is, why is everything that you're proposing better than the existing protocol that we have?
Well, a couple reasons. It's been a little over 15 years now since the original studies were done. So some of the improvements that were identified in that study have been completed. And there's also been a considerable amount of land development activity that's happened since then. More than likely, there's land development activity that's going to happen in the future that wasn't contemplated back then. The third reason would be, as you can imagine, construction costs for improvements are significantly more now than they were back in 2004. So
there's a need. It sounds like there's a need to increase the transportation impact.
Correct, and you can't predetermine it from the beginning, but the likely outcome would be is that your fee would be higher than it is now.
So I guess my question is, so right now, who decides what the transportation impact fee is going to be for any developer?
That's decided by what the development is, and we calculate it based on the Institute of Transportation Engineers trip generation manual. So that's
When you say
we calculate
in advance.
Correct.
Okay. And how will it change if we agree to this? The committee will decide that?
Correct.
Why is it better to have the committee decide it than to you to just tell us what it is?
Well, it's just the process that's outlined in the planning code that you have to follow. I mean, we're the ones completing all the technical work. The advisory committee is really there in place for a couple of reasons. One, to make sure that we're taking into account community input in the development of the plan. The way it's constructed, it was also intended to make sure that the development community has proper representation during the development of the studies and the fee. And so you're largely relying on our technical expertise in completing these studies. The advisory committee is just there for those more, I'll say, oversight.
So we're.
Are we required to adopt an advisory committee?
Yes, in order to make any changes to your existing fee.
So if we want to increase the fee, we have to have the committee?
Correct.
Okay, I understand now.
Just to understand the logistics of the composition of the committee, they're Lower Gwinnett Township residents, but they're going to consist specifically of real estate professionals, developers, or building industry professionals that either reside or do business in the township. So are they, I understand that we appoint them. How are they identified? And then they're making a commitment to at least 6 meetings and 2 hearings, just as a volunteer?
Correct. So, yeah, 40% of the committee is from the development real estate community. And that's typically either if you have any residents who are developers or real estate folks, they may volunteer, or, you know, a lot of municipalities, if there's a developer that does, you know, considerable amount of development work in the community, they'll ask those members if they're willing to volunteer and participate. The other 60% of the committee, that's wide open to township residents, whoever you would like to appoint. Lots of times, a municipality will appoint a member or 2 from the planning commission, just because they have a lot of background knowledge on development in the township. Couple restrictions on who can serve on the committee. Township staff can't serve, board supervisors can't serve on the committee. You're allowed to attend the meetings, but you can't serve on the committee. So that's the 2 restrictions.
And the 40%, the developer 40%, do they do or don't have to have a connection to the township?
They do, either by living in the township
or doing work in the
doing
township.
business.
And what happens if you can't find 7 people? I mean, you can't raise your impact fee?
Basically, yeah.
Okay.
It's
Thanks.
There's only been one community where I've ever ran into issues with the municipality being able to find the minimum number of members. And that was a very small community that they had some issues pointing. But the others we've done over 30 of these typically.
And not to be jaded, but seeing as I've been on the planning commission for a while and now here, I've seen a lot of developers come through. In your experience, are the developers, I assume their position is the impact fee should be less.
Right.
Well,
I'm just saying I don't want to say we're going to have 40% who may not have the township's best interests at heart, but will have their development best interests at heart.
Right. I'll get back to one of your previous questions, and that in the municipal planning code outlines very specific steps and requirements for how you conduct the studies and arrive at the fee at the end. It's very difficult for anybody to influence what the action.
It's just math, basically, more or less. So then why do we need a committee? I mean, it just seems, I mean, again, we're required to do this or we're stuck with our existing fees. You're telling me it's just math you're gonna say X plus Y equals Z. The committee's gonna sign off on it, I assume. It just jaded. It seems like a monumental waste of time.
I understand. The other thing I'll say is most developers from our experience actually, in many cases, like the impact fee because they know what their cost is up front. The traffic improvements. So
is there
developers these days?
But
I have two questions really quick though. The first one is well, I remember passing this and I remember COVID happening. Was there any reason that it took us 15 years to consider this? Was it because of the lack of development, or do you have any idea why?
I don't, not specifically. I can say that before you do a major update, most communities wait until they get into that 10 to 15 year.
So that's commonplace. That's not outside of the realm. The second thing is there any appeal process to not have an advisory committee? There's no other workaround. I mean, we're asking 7 to 15 people to waste 8 meetings of their life for something we know will probably happen. Is there any other workaround? No appeal.
yeah, so I have the same concern as these board members that if this is merely a math exercise, how do the members of the committee advise us about what kind of impact do they have on the impact study?
I would say that probably the point at which they probably have the most input is during the development of the land use assumptions report, because that is a little more subjective.
Okay.
In terms of calculating levels of service at an intersection based on traffic counts. So that's where they have, I think, the most valuable input, being representatives of the community. When we get into the traffic, I mean, there are some points where their input can be valuable if we get into a scenario where we're weighing one improvement versus another in terms of which should be the one identified moving forward in the report. You do have some instances where you could have 2 different improvements, road improvements that have the same benefit from a level of service standpoint. So that there may be some points where they can provide input where they say, well, the community might prefer improvement A over improvement B. So there are things that they can provide input on. I don't want to make it sound like they just show up and go to sleep and until it's over. That's not the case at all.
Okay.
But in terms of the committee, there is really no workaround for that. If you don't follow the process in the FPC, then your impact fee is open.
And how?
Any other questions from the board?
I do. I just have a real quick question, hopefully, to interrupt my train of thought. Is there a cost associated with forming these, obviously not forming the committee, but sort of the subsequent plans that'll be put in place? Is there a fee or an estimate or a cost estimate that we would be budgeting for or prepare for?
In terms of our fee as a consultant?
No, the town, well, yeah.
I guess, is that if we would just be paying your time for your time at these meetings and your analysis?
Yeah, we did submit a proposal for our fee to the township back at the beginning of 2020.
Okay.
You have a rough guesstimate what that was?
We'll hold you to that one, right? Inflation doesn't apply to you guys.
Yeah, we've committed to sticking with the price that we gave back then. Our fee was just under $60,000. Now, a portion of that, the township will be able to reimburse itself with impact fees that it collects. We can't tell you what that amount is until we complete the study. So there's a certain calculation that the FPC provides for that. The other part of it is the land use assumptions report. Originally, Ken Amy was going to Jim hasn't prepared a proposal for that work yet.
Okay.
But, we're going to sit down and work with that.
Okay.
And how much or how little does a comprehensive plan come into play with what you're going to do for making these assumptions?
It provides guidance in terms of the land use projections. The more important document in developing the land use assumptions report, I would say, is your zoning ordinance. It's your land use projections should be consistent. If it's not, it can be a challenge.
So if we're going to make changes to our zoning ordinance, we should probably do that before you get started on your work.
If it's substantial changes in terms of changing districts, that would have an impact.
Okay.
On land use projections.
Gotcha.
This entire process takes about 12 to 18 months.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the board? Are there any questions from the public?
I have a question.
Oh,
Jeannie.
go ahead.
So at the end of this process, we get a recommendation for increasing the traffic impact fee and what else?
A list of traffic improvements for different corridors and intersections in the township, which you'll be able to apply the impact fees to the future.
Oh, so like everyday people are going to make those decisions? I mean, I'm thinking that should be an engineer kind of decision.
We'll be doing the study as the advisory committee. Will be just that. They'll be overseeing our work, but we'll be the ones doing the technical work.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Good. Are there any other questions from the public? There are none on that. Thank you so much.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
So at this moment, what are the next steps? Or maybe this is Chad. Maybe you shouldn't sit down so quickly. At the next steps for us as a board is to identify the individuals and to actually staff the advisory committee.
Correct. So yeah, we were just looking for, I guess, approval tonight to work with staff to identify. Because
we've already authorized you to begin the Act 209 place. So it's just approval related to have staff work with you to identify the individuals.
This was authorized in 2020?
Yeah, you guys don't have anything to do. Yeah, we're just letting them. So you just want a verbal approval. I'll put forward a motion so that McMahon and Associates can work with our township staff to identify and identify and make recommendations as far as the advisory committee for Township Act 209 plan, Transportation Advisory Committee. Is there a second?
No, I think we have a question.
Oh.
No, that's why we're here.
Okay. Okay.
My background's engineering, not that. I'm just confused. How often is it recommended to do those? I mean, what's regular? 10 years, 7 years, 15?
And here.
Private company.
Oh, you have to hold the microphone near your mouth. You have to hold the microphone near you.
I don't know if that.
Is it not on?
Should be working. Just make sure it's on. Yes.
And try again.
Sorry. Yeah, so how is it determined that at 15 years we do this? Is it 10 years, 20 years? How did you come up with coming here and saying, we need this done? That's one. And then this was already approved in 2020? Yes?
The determination in recommending that the that the township do a major update now is just based on our experience in other municipalities that have impact fees and what they've done. There's no specific requirement in the MPC for when the major updates should be done. But the projections that are done in the initial studies are typically 10 years. So we recommend, based on other communities, that when you get into that 10 to 15 year period, that you consider doing a major update. Yes, our proposal was approved back in 2020. That was before COVID. We expected to start the study and the update in 2020. We couldn't do that though once we had to shut down because we just wouldn't get accurate traffic counts.
And if I just can just say, I think the timing of the study is sort of not less relevant, but takes a bit of a back seat to the fact that we can't raise the impact fee that we have. And we know there's going to be, like, we need to study for the specifics.
Right.
But we know the costs are going to increase, that our traffic impact fee is too low. The problem is the state, I think, has mandated that unless we do this, we can't raise our fee. So I think I share your concerns, but our hands are tied. Either we continue with the fee that's inadequate, or we bite the bullet. At least I assume that's what everybody thought in 2020. Again, Janine and I weren't on the board, so I can't speak.
Sure. I'm trying to understand the process. So an independent firm comes and says, your time now is to do this impact study. And they ask all these developers and real estate agents to be on this committee to...
They don't ask. So
we ask.
The township interviews people.
Yeah, but they tell us who qualifies.
It's not, they don't tell us. The state, this is the law, right? So the law says 40% developers. So we have to find 3 developers.
Well, I'm sure you'll find developers.
Yeah. Depending upon the size.
As long as, I think you're probably right. And then we find 4
If I was a developer, I'd want to be on.
But they have to have a relationship with Lower Gwinnett.
Totally.
So, but I don't think, again, I don't think that's going to be a problem.
That's to their benefit.
Yeah.
That they're on this.
Right.
I mean, everybody makes money here. And I get it that if we need it, absolutely. I'm just want to make sure like this is done right.
We're following we're following the law, and Chad is from McMahon and Associates, which is our traffic engineer. They've worked with the township for a long time.
Over 20 years.
Over 20 years.
We did the original, and we've done over 30 of these throughout the Commonwealth.
Yeah, we're just, I mean, the problem is we're stuck with the state law. So, yeah, of course, we want to raise the impact fee, but it's...
The state sets many of the laws that we have to follow, right? So it's just part of the second class.
This is the MPC code.
Municipalities planning code.
Yeah.
Planning code. So, yeah.
Is there any more questions? No? Seeing none, thank you, Chad. So I made a motion and repeat it again, just to authorize McMahon and Associates to work with our township staff to identify names for individuals to be considered for placement on our advisory committee. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much, Chad. That was very educational. Next up, we have Mike Malloy from Rise Up Towers, and we thank you for your patience. A proposal for cell tower collaboration with Lower Gwinnett Township.
Sure, well, it's not quite a proposal yet, so
it might just be a presentation about what you do and how you could help us.
My name is Mike Malloy. I'm an attorney and I'm co-owner of Rise Up Towers. And Rise Up Towers builds cell towers on municipal ground and gives the municipality 40% of the gross revenue from the towers. And so we've been promoting Rise Up throughout the lower southeast Pennsylvania region into New Jersey. We're starting to expand into Virginia and Maryland as well and have other expansion plans. We signed up Bucks County, the Montgomery Township Municipal Authority, and we're in discussions with some other townships as well. And the process basically works as follows. Township decides where they may want to put a tower, and there's no commitment to put a tower there. There's no, there's no gotcha here. You say, here's a piece of property that's out of the way with a water treatment facility on it, or a sewer plant on it, or something, your salt shed. And Rise Up goes, and at no cost to the municipality, will do an analysis, a full RF radio frequency analysis on the location. We use predictive software to determine both a need for coverage and for signal quality. And my partner in this, who was not able to make it tonight, he did this in 2009 through 13, built 15 towers around the Southeast Pennsylvania region. Those towers have brought in about $2 million worth of revenue for the municipal partners that he had then. That was right before the dawn of the iPhone. And so now we have Netflix, we have phones, we're streaming, we're doing everything online. And so there's a huge need for not only coverage, which I understand in the township from just anecdotal, conversations, experience with people, there are gaps, but there's a quality issue. And so you have all this data going through, an enormous amount compared to 2009 through 13. So across the country, they're predicting between 50 and 75,000 more towers. And we want the municipalities to get the first crack at that revenue. I should have done it electronically, but I'm old fashioned. So I prepared a revenue projection slide. And, for places where there's coverage, I'll give you, for example, we're in discussions with Whitpain, and Whitpain has some really interesting locations. And, our predictive models are showing, first of all, Dish Network is out there, and Dish is out co-locating. They're under an FCC mandate to get their network up and running, where they lose $1 billion worth of bandwidth. They have to co-locate. So every time you're looking, there's single tenant set that's broken down, revenue is broken down, single tenant, 2 tenant, I call them tenants, carriers, 3 and 4. You can almost guarantee that you're at the 2 carrier range. And this chart was done, under conservative model at $2,100 a month in annual in monthly rent. And that's at 40% of the revenue for the township. So, 4 carrier tower, and that's the plum, I'm picking the plum number here, but it's $1.4 million on a conservative estimate after 25 years for the township. Put 2 or 3 towers up, you have a great source of revenue. It's consistent. It's like a bond, an annuity. It's year after year, A-rated tenant, Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T, and Dish, which will be bought by, Comcast, Amazon, or Google probably in the next 2 years. Mm-hmm. So that's the pitch. It's no cost to the township. Rise Up does everything. We build it, we finance it. I noticed in your municipal code, there's municipal use in your zoning. And I think that I'll defer to your solicitor, but it probably gives you the latitude to decide where these things could go on a conditional use basis. So we come back and would do an application before the board, I guess, unless it was a by right location. And I don't know where your locations are or whether you would even entertain a location, but we're happy to sort of dip our toes in the water, look at a couple places where you'd like to be. And then it usually starts with a development agreement that says you'll give us a crack at, to put a tower there for 5 years, because a carrier may want one month, but not one the other. It's crazy how they change and go. We have some pictures of towers. They're not pretty. I'm not gonna lie. They're not. The trees look terrible. The flagpoles are pretty good. I like just a single monopole. I worked for a company for 12 years out in Exton called Hankin Group, and they run a place called Eagle View. And for years, my boss fought a tower, and just because he didn't like them. And finally, we convinced him we had to put one in there, and he put just a single pole, and it was a single, carrier, and it just disappeared into the background. I mean, there are other things. I was just in a township. This is the marquee design done improperly. This looks awful. It just looks that looks pretty good. We picked a good one. There was a township that did one. It looked terrible. So I like the single poles or the poles that are just out of the way. They can do lights on fields. There's extra community benefit. They'll build you, a scoreboard or whatever you want in association with the thing.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but at no cost.
Yeah, nothing.
They just throw it in.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great revenue source. It's a thing, and to get the tower is important. There's a fake tree. That's a better looking fake tree than normal. There's some really pathetic looking fake trees around. So
I've seen them in Arizona. They're cacti. And they're pretty good.
Yeah,
I mean, those are pretty good.
Yeah.
So
and we will do whatever you want.
I don't think want cacti.
Yeah. I just saw. So my partner just sent me one from where is it? Somewhere in Africa, and they do them. They look like palm trees, but they have them like right at the top. It's really amazing. Morocco. That's what they're beautiful. Yeah, they have to be. Yeah.
So let's say we enter into an agreement with Rise Up.
Yeah.
And I assume we're giving you access to all of our municipal property.
No.
Okay.
You're giving me access to whatever municipal property you want. You put together a list. You guys decide. We don't want to push your hand. We don't want to upset the public and have a riot here. we want to work with you from the beginning. And if it comes out and you say we don't want them, well, we walk away.
But if we give you we have an agreement, there's a schedule on there, I assume, that lists the properties that you can build on. That's where our discretion ends.
Or are we involved the entire time?
I mean, I read the agreement.
Yeah.
So I'm basing it on the agreement that you attached.
I mean,
we that's what we're going to be bound by, right? A contract?
Well, eventually you can't be bound by something, right? And we would like you to look. It's important for the carriers, okay? At some point, if we can do our RF study and we can invest time and stuff because that's our time and money, right? But once we go to a carrier and say we have an agreement, the township, is ready to go. That's when we need to know that you guys have committed to this site, and we've discussed it along the way. But there's no, when we have a ground lease, that's an absolute commitment. You're bound for 25 years. We're locked into a lease with a carrier. We're locked into a lease with you, and we're building a tower at that point. But we want you to be comfortable and make sure you have the discretion, at all times before that. We don't want you to, and if there's an approval process and things go south, we're gonna have to talk about it, So we're willing to put out money and time and effort, and work toward, that goal. But we want to work with you. We don't want to lock you into something that eventually is not going to be good for you.
I understand.
Yeah.
And I assume this is also whatever we agreed to, but is this rooftop rights in addition to standalone or?
So no, we want to build you towers. Okay. However, there are 5G microcells rolling out, and there are different rules. And what we're seeing is we compete against, Fortune 500 tower companies who beat the heck out of carriers. And that's why we get in there and say, look, we're not going to beat you up on the rent. We're not going to beat you up on 5% escalators. We kind of cut them a break a little bit. And then they like to deal with us, and they like to deal with municipal partners because then they know they have support from the government and they're not going to walk in, to a firestorm or at least from the board, right? That 5G rollout could happen in more dense areas. And we've promoted it and said, we're already dealing with municipalities in one context. So if you want to do a small cell rollout, we're there to be your partner there. And what we're finding is Crown Castle's in the space, and they're charging the carriers a lot of money to put this infrastructure in. And then the townships are paying like, they're getting to pay their $270 a node, which is statutory, right? And Crown's making a ton of money. So if anybody ever approached us and said, do you want to do small cells in Lower Gwinnett, we would come to you and then we would cut a better deal with you than Crown would, you know, for that. But those are the things that kind of go on rooftops and your little lights and stuff. So, but no, we would not want your rooftops. We want to build you towers. Yeah.
So do you help us figure out the best location? If we were to suggest to you that there were certain dead zones, or maybe we have a park, or maybe we have an idea about where it makes sense to put a tower, would you come to us and say, this isn't a great location?
Well, okay, so it's a little chicken and egg, you know. You have property that may be located where towers should or could go.
Mhm.
And in those cases, like you know, in those situations, you match the need with the land. Now, if you had a location where you had a dead zone and you didn't have any land, but you wanted us to work with a property owner or something like that, it would be outside of our model to work with a private owner instead of a municipality or an authority or whatever. Sure. But we would do it.
No, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to get at is you guys, it's not just that you'll build towers, but you can help us figure out where the best location for the tower would be.
Well, we analyze locations and we really, it's kind of the inverse. Like we can pick a location. I should have brought I'll forward the board a sample of the things, but it basically breaks it down and it shows, you know, the map, the adjacent or nearby towers, whether there's nearby infrastructure, and then it analyzes a signal need based on the different signals that the carriers have. So you see AT&T, you see Sprint, Verizon. Sprint's still around, even though it got bought. T-Mobile and
Right, no.
Verizon. Okay, so they analyzes those 4 carriers from that coverage and quality, and then you know we go from there. I mean, we can take though, like if you know there's a gap, and we could take any location and analyze it for signal stuff, but you know, but it's not. It doesn't quite work that way. It's not like a broad RF analysis of the whole township. Okay, you know.
I gotcha.
I have some. I guess instead. Are you done? I'm sorry. I have some aesthetic questions. How much space or land do you actually need? And then how tall are the towers typically? And is there any variation in height?
Right. So we like them at about 120 feet.
Okay.
That would be the ideal. Some won't, you know, ideally, and they would like to go higher. Some of them are 150. You need a 50 by 50 enclosure. So some variation of that, 70, 30, 80, 20. And sometimes if you really want to be, if they're more constrained sites, you can fit them into smaller locations.
The last question I had is there any negative health effects for having these towers close to residential homes?
No, I mean, they've been up for years. They're everywhere. You know, I was, when I started, my kid was down at Skipback, the fields playing field hockey. And I turned around and there's 2 old lattice towers that have been sitting there for probably the past 25 years, 20 years. So they're everywhere. And no, you know.
Thank you.
So if we work with you and you put up a couple of towers, are you responsible then for the maintenance of the towers?
Yeah.
And you expect them at least to last for 25 years? Is that a usual lifetime or?
Well, so I put 25 down, but we really do 25 plus 4-year leases. So we get it under about 30. And then, you know, ideally they'll go for another 25. They'll be there forever.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, see, so when you get to the 25, 30 year, and this is the other thing, you know, we might be stealing tenants from other antennas because the rent gets really high, you know, and the carriers go, well, I could just flip over to Rise Up's tower and start over again with you guys, you know. And I don't think you have any towers in the township right now that you're getting income from. So it would
Okay.
just be gravy for you guys. So.
There is a tower.
I mean, no, but not that you receive income from as a township.
Okay. So did you say we would be locked into a 25-year lease?
Yeah, you'd have to be, because that's the carriers are looking to put their signal up and invest their money. And
Do we
yeah.
think that this technology is not going to change in 25 years?
Well, I mean, they're building. I hope not, because I want to. I got to build some towers before that happens. So I sure hope not.
The towers are on the hook for the rent. Once they sign the lease, they're on the hook.
Yeah, they're on the hook. I mean, yeah, it's a 25-year lease term, and it just keeps, and again, the carriers aren't going anywhere. If the technology changes, they replace with the antennas. I don't think there's any way they can get around it.
Okay.
Don't tell them if you have one. Please keep it to yourself. All right.
So the first step from us is kind of us as a board or us as a township identifying space and then reaching back out and starting that process.
Talk amongst yourselves with your township staff.
Okay.
Think about there's any space that's, and let's help you monetize it, something that you have a lot of populated areas and, you'd still have gaps, and that's kind of rare, to have real coverage gaps, around here. So I think it's ripe for opportunity probably. So.
Are there any other questions from the board? Are there any questions
Thank
from
you
the
very
public?
much. I really appreciate your time. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Next up, we have a consideration for the proposal for our MCPC to update our comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan was included in the manager's report as well as a previous proposal that we received back in 2020 from our current engineer. I'm totally fine with us considering this and moving forward, or because I know that there's one board member who wanted to have a discussion around it not being present, to table it until she's able to be present. We have waited 22 years for a comprehensive plan. I think maybe 1 month might not be an extreme stretch, but it's totally up to the board. I mean, do you guys have questions or concerns?
I have one question. I'm happy to table it so we can wait for Kathy to discuss it, but is the figure in the plan, the $77,000 figure, $77,000 figure, is it half of that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That was my question. Yeah. Gotcha. Okay.
So I think.
Yeah, I saw that, but then I saw the main.
This is the resolution for us to pass. I don't know if you can scroll down so they can see the schedule of time and compensation and the total cost. This would be us working with Montgomery County commissioners and the Planning Commission. And it kind of walks through, and it's saying that they would start in July 1st of 2020, terminate June 30th, 2025. So essentially a 3-year plan.
2020.
I'm sorry, did I say? I'm sorry, July 1st, 2022 and terminate June 30th, 2025. We do our portion and our percentage of payment wouldn't exceed 50% of the total cost set forth below. And I think you can see that total cost below. So I know that another board member who's not present tonight wanted to discuss it, and I'm okay with waiting to discuss it, but I want to leave it up to the board.
I would agree to table it so that we can respectfully let the other board member join in.
Okay. So, and this is just to clarify with our township manager, as long as we have this, is there any time frame beyond that this is good from until July 1st, after July 1st, with this, anything about this contract change?
Not to my knowledge. I believe with the meeting we had with the Planning Commission, they said that if we had to push this off, that this number should be good for at least the end of this year.
Okay. So I'm going to make a motion to table this so we can consider it with the full board present.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We will table the the update to our comprehensive plan. Next up is resolution 2022-14. It's a submission regarding greenways, trails, recreation on our program grant. Before you is the resolution. It's basically authorizing our staff as well as contracted staff to move forward with making a proposal as it relates to us applying for grant funding through the Pennsylvania Greenways, Trails, and Recreation Program. We're requesting a total amount of $80,750 to the Commonwealth Financing Authority to be used for Oxford and Penn Ambler Park Master Plan project. We're not actually identifying repairs or revisions or updates. We're talking about the planning stage, and the cost that they have come up with would be $80,750, and we would have a matching contribution of $14,250. Are there any questions from the board? Seeing none other questions.
I just noticed, and I think this is just a type of graphical thing. I just want to make sure it's okay with Neil that we change it.
Oh, in the witness of.
Yeah, the
that
borough.
part, yeah, I did see that. We're not why I'm missing.
Yeah, we're
borough.
lower one. That's okay though, right? We can still adopt it.
So
with that
the last page,
note.
it does say in witness thereof, the Borough Council of the Borough of Wyomissing has adopted this resolution in the lawful session. Could that be updated before we sign it, or can we strike it at minimum with some whiteout?
Yeah, we could change this. We can, we'll get it signed at a different night, but we can approve it with that change to that we are Lower Gwinnett and not the Borough of Wyomissing.
Okay. So we have before us resolution 2022-14 authorizing us applying for the GTRP grant. In addition to that authorization, we're going to strike out that we are the Borough of Wyomissing and infer that we are Lower Gwinnett Township. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much. Next up, we have authorization for sale of equipment to the highest bid received on municipal bid. Is this you, Fred?
Yeah. We received the bids. I believe that you got the memo in your manager's report of the high bids.
Yeah.
For the Case Backhoe, the Tahoe Explorer, and some cameras.
I think before us, I don't know if we're gonna. No, it's okay. I think there was 4 vehicles. No, actually 3 vehicles and one camera. To the highest bid, or it's laid out before you, but 2004 Case Backhoe was $22,500. We got 79 bids. 2015 Chevy Tahoe, $15,800. We got 51 bids. And then the 2013 Ford Explorer, we got 26 bids for $5,300. Cameras, $280, 11 bids. Basically, Fred is coming before us to ask us if he can extend an offer of sale for these 4 items. Are there any questions from the board or to Fred? Seeing none, are there questions from the public? So what we have before us is authorization for the sale of this equipment to the highest bidder received through municipal bid. Is there a second? No, I'm sorry, I'm making this motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much, Fred.
Thank you.
Next up, we have the authorization to extend employment offer for a new public works foreman. I know that we had tried to kind of get the opportunity to meet the public works foreman applicant. I know that he has met the township staff, but none of the members of the board have actually had a chance to sit down and meet him. I'm going to put before us a motion to table this employment offer. I don't feel comfortable with nobody from the board having met the individual.
Could, knowing that we go to 1 meeting a month next month, this will be a month away. Wondering if the board would consider authorizing extending the employment offer after approval by a subcommittee, whether administrative or public works, meets and approves the individual.
Is that legally allowed, Neil?
I'm not aware of that being done in the past. That's not something I would recommend.
Okay.
Could we have a special meeting
We could have a special meeting just to
consider?
Can we get some, why don't we get some dates for when he's available? And then let's do it sooner rather. I know this was a bad week for me. So if we can get some dates and then maybe we can schedule a special meeting and get this done, because I know it's difficult to find people and
we don't want to prolong his.
No. So maybe we can do it, maybe find time next week to meet with him.
The special meeting would just require all, this is just for clarification, Neil. Could we do this virtually where we advise the public that we're going to have a public meeting just to carry out this one task? Would we have to have somebody in the township building?
You still have to comply with the Sunshine Act, even if it's a special meeting.
So one person has to be here?
Somebody has to be here in case the public wants to attend.
But we could do, okay. So as long as, and I don't think I'd have a problem next week being in person. If just everybody else would come on Zoom and then we could kind of approve it really quick. Or okay. It wouldn't be a long meeting. That's what I'm saying.
We still haven't interviewed the.
Correct. I'm saying like either way, if we're going to make an extended offer of employment, then we could have the meeting. If not, then there would be no meeting.
Okay.
Right. So either Public Works or administration will meet with him, and then let's try to do that next week, and let's schedule the meeting, shortly thereafter. I mean, even if we can schedule it, how much notice do we have to give up the public meeting?
For 24 hours.
24 hours.
Okay. I think we can, assuming that the interview goes well, and I think we could probably get this done next week.
Yeah. Either way, we can make contact with the individual, and then we would go.
Yeah, but let's try to get it resolved.
Absolutely. Okay. So I'm going to put forth a motion for us to table to extend the employment offer to the public works foreman. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We will table the extension of the employment offer to the public works foreman. Authorization to accept proposal for television and repairs to sanitary sewer lines in the areas found to be compromised in our recent INI study. Is this you, Jim?
It is me.
Let us know what's going on.
All right. So we conducted infiltration and inflow monitoring in the sanitary sewer system. It's known as Drainage Basin B. Portions of Plymouth Road, Surrey Drive, Latch String Lane, Lorien Drive, Beth Drive, and Alexis Drive. We had bounced a flow meter around to about 4 manhole locations, different trunk lines of the sewer system in that area. 3 of the 4 locations showed no peak or no noticeable peak during rain events, but there was a manhole number 700 where the peaking factor was higher than we'd like to see. So the next step in investigation is to have the mains in that area cleaned and televised. Once they put the cameras through, we'll be able to see if there are leaking joints, crushed pipe, leaking potentially laterals, places where rainwater is getting into the sanitary sewer system. You want to try to eliminate that as soon as possible because you're paying to treat clean water essentially. So what we did was we went out, we got quotes from 4 different companies that specialize in that service. The lowest bidder was Sewer Specialty Services. They had a base bid of $15,220 to complete the televising and inspection work. The way this works is that they put the cameras down there. They flush the lines, then they televise them. And if they come up with, they find some defects, they have the ability to put a separate machine down the pipe and grout in place and fix everything while they're out there. So we don't have to pay them to mobilize twice. So every year, and Craig can confirm this or tell you what the amount is, the township budgets a certain dollar figure for the I&I work, the investigations, the televising, and then ultimately the repairs. So my office, based on similar size projects in the past, we anticipate about up to $20,000 in repairs that could be authorized at the time that we find the defects. So what we would be asking the board to do is authorize the township manager to execute a contract with Sewer Specialty Services for an amount not to exceed $35,220.
Is that in the budget, Craig, for this year?
That is within the budget this year, yes.
Can you tell us exactly how much we budgeted for?
I don't like to tell Gilmore how much we budget. It is $60,000 a year.
Okay.
Jim, you need to step down. We're going to talk about you.
Earmuffs, Jim.
And then we have this meter moved to a completely different area of the township right now. And so we anticipate sort of bouncing it around to continue this whole entire situation so that we don't, miss any time.
Don't feel like you have to use all the 6.
So how often and frequently do you do this?
We are planning to do this continually until the entire system's been
Reviewed?
Yeah.
And does that need to be reviewed annually, quarterly?
Every time we spend money to fix something or to televise something, I'll come back and ask you for authorization. But like, there's not a lot of time involved with moving the meter around because it's a remote situation. So all we have to do is we put it in a manhole and we leave it there for about a month, depending on how frequently it rains. Like we could put it in and it could rain twice in 2 weeks and we could go back and download the data and then move it somewhere else. Whereas like other times later in the summer, we're waiting for it to rain a couple times so we can move it. And it might be in a manhole for 6 weeks.
Gotcha. Okay. Is there any other questions from the board?
Yeah. So is this something you just keep doing forever? You just keep moving that thing around and?
Yeah, you eventually you'll have done your entire sewer system, but
right.
it takes a while to do that. Yeah. I'm sorry, what you said?
And then you start over?
Yeah, but you would you'd concentrate, we're gonna concentrate, and we are concentrating on the older portions of the system. And then that was this past sort of area. And now I'm concentrating on some areas that might see some future development to make sure that there's no issues with those parts of the system, because they might take some additional flow based on development.
And yeah, I was just trying to get a sense of, is this like a continuing process, or it's a finite process, like we were talking about the traffic that you do once every 5 years?
Generally speaking, if you want to stay on top of things, you got to do maintenance. You got to do this type of work on a continual basis. It's similar to like owning your roads and repaving them. I mean, if it gets to a point where communities get to points where they might divert funds from a certain spot to another spot and sort of neglect a sewer system or a water system, but that's just a recipe for a lot of problems down the road.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So I think we have before us a recommendation by Gilmore and Associates. I'm sorry, are there any other questions from the board? Are there questions from the public? Seeing none. So we have before us a recommendation from Gilmore and Associates to authorize the township manager to execute a contract with Sewer Specialty Services in the amount not to exceed $35,220 for the scope as defined above. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jim. Next up, we have the authorization to advertise ordinance 530, the revision of our police hiring procedures. I think back in 2021, maybe 2020, we revised our, it was 2020. Maybe 2021. It was 2021, I'm sorry. We incorporated Act 57 into our hiring procedures within Lower Gwinnett Township. And Act 57 kind of outlines some offenses that need to be identified when hiring a police officer from another municipality. There's a requirement through a database that any municipality has to disclose if there had been any final or binding prohibited offenses regarding this officer. And that's what Act 57 did. We incorporated that into our hiring ordinance. We're kind of taking it a step further and requesting, I guess, a little bit more stringency by deleting the final and binding. And what that would do is allow us to be made aware, us as a board and our police chief, to be made aware of any open investigations that maybe are not completely final and binding or through the appeals process are still being investigated regarding any officer that we would be hiring from another municipality. So it gives us one additional layer of protection and a little bit more information. It doesn't, none of this prevents or precludes us from hiring an officer, whether it was final and binding or not. But the requirement would be that we would need to be made aware of any of that information. So all this is doing is deleting those words final and binding in all sections of our ordinance as it relates to Act 57. Are there any questions from the board? And this is just the advertisement of that. Are there any questions from the public? Seeing none, we have before us a motion to advertise ordinance 530 revising our police hiring procedures. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much. Next up, we have consideration of waiving the fees for the Flower Still Grow event at Penland Park on June 11, 2022. Do you want to take this, Mr. Tversky?
Sure. There's an event that's been taking place, I guess, annually for quite some time in Penland and the Penland Park. It's the Flowers Still Grow event. It's put on by one of our residents who lost a couple children in a fire many years ago, and this is a way for her to give back. It's a really wonderful community event. And this year, she applied for a permit, and the permit comes with some fees to it. And given the nature of the event, she had asked whether we would waive the fees, and that's what's before the board now.
And I think also we should kind of say that in the past, Ambler has kind of donated materials to the event. Whit Payne has donated monies. I think the Wissahickon Fire Company has come out with their time and kind of donated their equipment and staff. So this would be our contribution. It's always been in Lower Gwinnett. We haven't always donated. This could be and should be a part of our contribution to the event to continue. I don't see on here the total number of what the amount would be. And I don't know if you have the final figure of what it would be.
I don't have the exact figure. It's under $300.
Okay. So this is authorization. So we have before us consideration for the waiving of the fee of the Flower Still Grow program. Are there any questions from the board? Are there any questions from the public? Seeing none, I'll make a motion for us to waive the fees for the Flower Still Grow event at Penland Park on June 11, 2020. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much. Next up, we have consideration for a township to recognize Juneteenth as an official township holiday. I think we have before us a resolution. And I guess just a little background, Juneteenth has gotten a lot of recognition recently because it was made a federal holiday. Our county, in addition, identified it as a holiday. And it's kind of worded as Juneteenth Independence Day. But in honesty, what it is, it's very nuanced and it's very regionally specific to honoring, kind of, in my opinion, the resilience of Black folks in the face of injustice, and recognizing the vigilance of Black people in our country and how they've had to endure through delays of justice. So while it's sometimes deemed Independence Day, Juneteenth is very specific to Galveston, Texas, and them being made aware of the Emancipation Proclamation. However, the Emancipation Proclamation, as we know through history, did not free any enslaved Africans. It actually only applied to those states that were rebel held. which means there were still individuals enslaved in states that were Union occupied, including states like Maryland and Kentucky. So while the independence or the quote unquote freedom that those in the frontier lands of Texas, specifically Galveston, and what they face, I think that is something to honor and to acknowledge on paper, but in all honesty, until the passing of the 13th Amendment, which happened on December 18th of 1865, was their true abolition of slavery. So I think it's important for all of our communities to kind of be aware of that history, to acknowledge the significance, especially as it relates to those in Texas. Again, it had regional significance, but I think in a totality, us as Pennsylvanians can take into consideration the fact that we had the gradual Abolition of Slavery Act that was passed, and kind of lends itself to us considering things that we are gradually trying to resolve but not taking a stand on as it relates to a whole plethora of items, including climate change, environmental justice, equity for our LGBTQI community. So it lends itself to all of us considering, you know, what we are not taking a stand on immediately. But again, I think most people that lived in Pennsylvania or have still lived in Pennsylvania are unaware of Juneteenth. Because again, it's regionally a significant thing to those in the frontier in the southwestern states of Galveston, Texas. So we have before us the entirety of the resolution, and it walks us through that process. Declaring June 19th, 2022, Juneteenth Independence Day. Are there any questions from the board? Are there any questions from the public? So I'll make a motion for us to identify and recognize June 19th, 2022 as Juneteenth Independence Day, and recognize the significance of that day moving forward. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Seeing none, we have passed and identified Juneteenth Day. Thank you so much. Next up, we have the consideration for Lower Gwinnett Township to participate in a Juneteenth event at Bethlehem Baptist Church. Ambler Borough has consistently, I think for the past 2 years, held a Juneteenth celebration, and they asked to partner with Lower Gwinnett Township. And they asked to partner with Lower Gwinnett Township at Bethlehem Baptist Church. So we had to wait until we had a public meeting to consider our participation in that partnership. Really what it would be is kind of a gathering to discuss the importance of the holiday and a delicious barbecue / picnic. So it's coming together. It's the community involvement. It's the acknowledgement of the significance of the day, and then us, you know, participating in a good gathering. Part of the issue is that until we actually decide that we're going to participate, we can't authorize funding. And like our township manager said, we're moving towards one meeting a month. The proposal date would be June 18th from 2 to 4 p.m. at Bethlehem Baptist Church. And they had requested in partnership with Ambler Borough for us to kind of cover half the cost of food. We haven't made a determination of what that would be, so we would have to identify an amount that we'd be comfortable up into contributing to. So part of the legwork that I and some of the Ambler Borough Council members have seen, that it depends upon the number of individuals, I think we all know, but if we were anticipating between 50 and 75 individuals, the cost could range from about $2,000 to $3,500. So if we were comfortable authorizing, in addition to our participation, up to $1,000. I mean, I don't know what it's hard to say, because without, we wouldn't be able to go above it. It would be very, this is very guesstimate, right, which is hard because we won't have another meeting prior to the actual event.
You said it was 2,500 to 3,000 total, so it's split between the three, parties who
Yes.
would be involved.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that sounds reasonable to me.
Does anybody else have any input, questions, concerns? Seeing none, are there any concerns, questions from the public? Okay, so I would make a motion for us to participate in the Juneteenth event at Bethlehem Baptist Church, June 18th, 2 to 4 p.m., unless that is changed due to rain, and authorize the township to participate or contribute up to $1,000. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much. Next up, we have the EAC committee report. It seems like the EAC has 2 requests. I don't know if online or is Tessie, are you doing it, or is the chair online or the vice chair? Can't see.
Larry's here if we have any questions here on the tree giveaway, right, Larry?
Oh,
if we have any
you
questions.
taking it, Larry?
If we have any questions, but I don't think he's prepared a presentation. I think it's just based
okay.
on.
So before us, they have given us, I guess, a lot of materials. I think it was a 7-page, and thank you so much for that thorough report around the tree giveaway, and kind of identified how the background, how that would look, how it would be executed, the costs associated with it, where it would be, the time frame, and even down to where the items would be located. Are there any questions from the board around the tree giveaway?
This is within the EAC's budget that has already been approved. So
Correct.
it's within their budgetary restraints.
Correct. And I mean, the totality, I don't know if you can, it's $15,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's an extensive.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
I think it's really great suggestion by the EAC.
I appreciate that.
Do you have any questions for me?
No, I think you did a beautiful job and thorough job. In that
Yeah,
report,
thank you,
though.
Larry, for all the time and effort. Larry went to the Whitpain tree giveaway. They've been giving trees away for what, 20 some years, Larry, and he went and volunteered his time and really put a lot of effort into putting this proposal together. So I appreciate that. I'm excited for the trees.
I will indicate my extreme sacrifice as a night person to have to go to Whitpain's 6:30 a.m. and start on a Sunday.
You're a dedicated servant, Larry.
I also would add that I see this as a pilot project. And we're starting out if there's essentially 1 tree per person. Whitman does 3. And there are many other communities that also do this. And it's up to you guys whether you want to continue it or whatever, but at least we'll see how it works from our end.
They do 3.
I actually have a question. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No.
So I'm sure this won't be the case, but let's say we purchase $15,000 worth of trees.
Yes.
And we don't have takers for all of them. I'm sure it won't be the case, but let's say it is the case. What happens to the leftover trees?
We will find some land that the township owns and plant them.
Great.
Yeah, they'll definitely won't go to waste.
Awesome.
I will say Whitpin's been doing it for over 20 years. And, they have a huge parking lot at the Prophecy Creek facility that they have. And there were just cars and cars. But on the other hand, it is very well known to the community. And I have to say, one of the things that was a pleasure to see is their head of, they don't have an EAC, but they have a Shade Tree Commission. So the president of the Shade Tree Commission gave a short talk, and a member of the Board of Supervisors also give an interesting talk. The idea is these are not gifts. Nobody from this city is giving anybody a gift. What we're doing here is trying to get more things in the ground that take up carbon and give off oxygen.
Like I said, I think it's a great idea.
That's our plan.
I just want to thank you so much for the detailed report you gave us. It was very extensive and appreciated tremendously. I think we have a question from the audience.
Lynn Smith, I was I'm part of the Emblem Rotary. I know there's a group of kids who will plant trees. So if you have extra trees, they would probably be able to help you plant them.
That's exactly what I was looking for. Give me your name, email, and so forth. Yes, yes. And I will say that I didn't mention this, and I wrote a long report about the WITPEN process, but they also have a Rotary there that helps out with them. And also there are kids, high school kids that have to have time in for volunteer activities.
Yeah.
And that's very useful. And so when we were when WITPEN was asking kids to help load, I thought they were going to get, you know, the football team or something. They got the robotics team.
But they got it done, right?
Oh, they absolutely did get it done. Yes, it was very, very effective.
That's awesome.
Larry.
Any other questions about the tree giveaway?
Yes, right here.
Yes, Supervisor.
Yes. So I think we discussed this at the EAC. Is there a goal of increasing our shade tree coverage, our tree canopy to a certain density? So maybe the goal might be 60% coverage or something like that?
Yes, Montgomery County publishes a really useful document with regard to tree coverage. And with respect to WITPEN, they were trying to get to 40% coverage, and they were somewhat below it, I think, in the mid 30s. And this is their effort. We, in contrast, are starting at about 50% tree coverage. This is as of 2014, when the last study was done by the county. Now, since that time, we've actually lost trees. We've lost trees. And I don't know the number that we've lost. You know, we've had Ida and other things. So I would say that if in a few years we could get up to 60, that would be a really good goal for us, because that would make us, there's only a handful of townships in Montgomery County that are anywhere near 50%, by the way, maybe 5. And there are a lot of townships. Thank you for that. That would be a very good way to sort of have people come together and make use. See, we can't put more trees in city property because they're parks and wild areas. They already have a lot of they can have some more, but not a really massive. So we have to go to the private sector, so to speak.
Yeah, great.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we have before us consideration to authorize the EAC for the tree giveaway. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Now, Melinda Wolf is on the line, I see, and so is Ree on the line, and I too am on that committee. But those two probably did most of the heavy lifting for that. So
we're doing the trees.
We're doing the tree.
We're doing the tree.
We were about to authorize it.
Sorry?
We're doing the tree giveaway still. We were about to authorize it.
Oh, right. Okay.
We didn't yet, though.
Okay, I will just put this over here.
There it is. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Now we've authorized the tree giveaway. Thank you so much, Larry. And thank you to the EAC. Next up, we have the clean energy resolution. The resolution was included in our manager's report. Is the proposal for the 2020 clean energy resolution is to help reduce and mitigate our township GHG emissions. And they're recommending that we authorize the creation of this resolution. It seems to me like it's the same as the Ready 100 resolution, but we don't actually have the resolution drafted. So I think the proposal is to work
To authorize the solicitor.
To authorize the solicitor to develop the language for the Ready 100 or clean energy resolution based upon the examples that they included. And I think they included Ambler, WITPEN, and I thought I saw Cheltenham. And I think that there is some draft language in there as well. Are there any questions from the board?
So I read the draft resolutions, or resolutions from the other municipalities, and the one thing, first off, absolutely noble, great goal. The one thing that I want to make sure if we wind up drafting something is that is what this is. It's a goal. It is aspirational. It does not obligate us to anything. It is not a mandate that will have to become part of the budget or will be unfunded otherwise. This is a goal that we should seek to achieve, but I want to make sure we're not mandating us to something that is going to cost us a lot of money that we don't have or set us up for failure.
And that's in my interpretation of understanding Ready 100 and its involvement from the Sierras Club and how they promoted it. That's what it is. It's a goal. It's an aspirational goal, and the goal includes the work to actually get to what that would look like.
If they provide sort of resources and ways to help you achieve that goal without sort of outlaying.
So DEP, and they have a climate action plan for 2021, and online there's a plethora of kind of resources that kind of help you get towards that goal and to identify what makes sense for your municipality and how you go about making it make sense for your municipality.
The reason I noted is if you look at the Ambler after the now therefore be it resolved, it says Ambler Borough will join other leading towns and cities in the nation ready for 100 movement to transition to 100% clean renewable energy for all and complete this transition to, and then it lists a few things. Now earlier in the whereas clauses, it talks about it being a goal. In the wherefore clause, in the following clauses, it doesn't continue to reference that. And I just want to make sure that we do it that way as opposed to
absolutely. No, yeah. And there's tons of examples, including Cheltenham, Springfield, Upper Dublin. Like you can go forth and kind of use any of them as a
now, I see Melinda has her hand raised. Because we discussed that particular issue. We didn't want to commit the.
We were just discussing it amongst the board, but we will open it up. Are there any questions or comments from the public?
Right, and this is also with regard to private residences too. It's not just our own buildings.
Absolutely.
Correct. Yes, yes.
Go ahead, Melinda, if you can identify yourself and your name and address.
Hi, Melinda Wolf, 930 Ridgeview Lane. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Larry, for almost trying to get them to pass the resolution before they actually discussed it. Nice. Yes, Michael, you're absolutely correct. It is stating the goal. It's not binding you by law or ordinance or anything else. It's a resolution that you will strive to achieve. And as Larry also stated, it is a community-wide thing. It's not just aimed at the municipal facilities. It's for the township, the businesses, the institutions, the residents, and we'd all be on the same page. And while making decisions going forward, we would strive to be more energy efficient, go towards more electrification, and while also then seeking to transition over to carbon-free or carbon neutral energy sources.
Thank you. I think we have another question from an audience member. You want to stand just so you can stand and say your name? Larry, could she come up to the, okay, there you go. Thank you, Larry, for your assistance.
Lynn Smith, 507 Hobby Horse Hill. I don't quite understand. Sierra Club is sunsetting this program.
They are.
So
they
why are we considering this program if they're sunsetting it?
So Sierra Club is sunsetting it because most municipalities have already adopted this and have transitioned and are working towards the 2035 goal of transitioning to renewable energy. We are well behind the curve. No clear explanation as to why we're well behind the curve. Some would say that our EAC has been actively kind of working towards that transition, but we haven't had a formalized resolution identifying that that is a goal of Lower Gwinnett Township. The reason why they're sunsetting. Sorry, did somebody say something?
Yeah, Melissa, did you want to say something?
Melinda?
Melinda,
Yeah.
sorry.
Hi, hi, Lynn. It's Melinda again. Am I being heard?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. It's not, I wouldn't use the term sunsetting. Sierra Club is sunsetting. Sierra Club did start this movement many, many years ago, and they gave birth to it, and they've nurtured it on a national level and set up on the state level, you know, the movement and participation in it. It's gotten to the point, as Danielle said, that it's grown up, the RF 100, quote unquote, which is also called clean energy. If you don't want to call it RF 100, it's still kind of the same thing. It's grown so much that, and so many municipalities have adopted a resolution such as what is going to be created for the board to look at and to adopt, that they're already in the transition planning stages, these municipalities. The resources available from Sierra Club are still out there, and there's a ton of resources, information, webinars, meetings. It's still going on. Sierra Club National just decided that, okay, you know, it's grown up, it's got legs, it's going forward without, we're going to now devote our resources, pivot and devote our limited resources in other areas, most of which is still around clean energy, but more in the transition planning instead of, you know, making the resolution.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, but she said it in a much more extenuated circumstance. People are transitioning, so the monies and resources are going toward that transition, implementation of the transition plan, as opposed to just identifying that this is a priority of ours. Like I said, there's no clear explanation as to why we have not adapted it. EAC probably, from my observation, has been working towards that type of work, but we just haven't had the formal adaptation of it. That makes sense.
So then what are you deciding to do here?
So this is just to authorize the formation of the resolution, to have the EAC work with our solicitor to actually craft our resolution specific to Lower Gwinnett, but for us to identify how Lower Gwinnett is going to transition to 100% renewable energy by 2035.
That's quite a goal to transition to renewable energy in basically 15 years.
Absolutely, and that's why generally it's identified as either 80% reduction in some area. Some people use 100% reduction in some area, but the idea is 2050.
Okay.
Any other questions from the public?
Mary Ann New, 539 Tennis Avenue.
Okay.
This is going to be a very expensive project, correct?
No, because it doesn't bind us to anything.
Yeah, and that was the whole purpose of it. I mean, how do you think it's going to be expensive?
We're not being bound to it.
Replacing the heating plant in this building alone.
Well, at some point, the heating plant's going to need to be replaced. And we'll have to make a decision, whoever the board is will have to make a decision. Same thing when we need new cars or need new equipment. We're going to have to, let me just finish. We're going to have to make a decision. We're going to have to replace X with Y. And
you're going to be doing it with monies you already have or taxes that are already, because Mr. Torsky and Ms. Martin both ran on not raising taxes, and I can just foresee.
Well, I think that you have to also talk about the fact that our state has proposed that this is an initiative that we're trying to move forward with our state. So there are grant fundings to replace electric vehicle charging stations. There's rebate monies to actually place them in our communities. There's rebate monies for solar panels and solar arrays. I understand your hesitation, but I think and this is just the science, and I'm not a scientist, so Tessa, you can jump in if you hear me say something wrong, but there isn't a planet B, and clearly it's not working with our fossil fuels. So we're talking about what does that look like for us to transition to renewable energy? Because otherwise, what are the other choices?
Yeah, I think the science and the public can see, witness how changes have occurred over the last 30, 40 years. And if we don't make this commitment now, who is going to make it? You know, I think now is the time for Lower Gwinnett to get on, you know, move on, get on with this adoption of clean energy and for our children. So whatever way we can do the most efficient progression toward clean energy, I fully support that. And I'm very happy that the EAC has brought this forward, and Melinda has done quite a bit of research, and she really is a valuable resource to help us understand what resources are available. And so, yeah, we have to draw a line in the sand and move forward with this.
I do appreciate your comments, but I think it kind of lends itself to a lot of the feelings that a lot of people have about the uncertainty of why make this big leap to make a change. And kind of when I talked about Juneteenth independence, the desire to have a gradual abolition of slavery, I think was the delayed reaction when we knew it was time to make a stance. And I think that I can apply that to environmental justice as well as a plethora of other things where there's no benefit for us delaying. But, you know, I appreciate your sentiment. Larry, you have another question?
Could I respond to you? I'm not on board. When I moved here 3 years ago, the first thing I did was put solar panels on my house. And the total price, it's a smallish house, 2,000 square feet, one floor. What I did was I got a system that cost $30,000. I got 10,000 of that, 12,000 of that forgiven on my income taxes. And so now it was a 22,000. And then I have a projection about, because my electric bill is $10 a month, every month. I'm not paying for electricity. I'm actually paying off the system. And so in 12 years from when I put it in 3 years ago, that system will be paid for. It's the only thing you can put in a house that actually pays for itself. The warranties on the panels are 25 years and the payoff is 12 years. And so what happens after 12 years is I start making money. My house, which already provides me with vegetables, will soon provide me, after 12 years, with actual money. That's nice.
Thanks, Larry. Did you have another question? You had another question, Ms. Smith? I'm sorry, did you have another question, Ms. Smith?
I just think it's an unrealistic goal. I think that's an unrealistic goal.
Okay, I appreciate it.
To turn the township into renewable energy in 15 years.
Are there any other questions from the public? I can't see if there's any else online. No, seeing none. We have before us the authorization for the EAC to work with our solicitor to establish the clean energy resolution, or the RF 100. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much. We have next up, I believe it is comments from the public comment for anything that wasn't on the agenda. Oh, you can come up, Aunt Gloria. You just state your name and address.
My name, can you hear me?
I can.
My name is Gloria Jones, and I live at 1007 Pershing Road in Penland, PA. I grew up in the village of Penland, and my family, as well as other African-American families in Penland, have a history of over 100 years there. So I was going to send this as a letter, but I decided that I really wanted to present it in person. In reference to the supervisors meeting on May 10th, 2022, because of a glitch in the virtual operation of my computer, I was unable to get through during the public discussion of a proposal for the anti-discrimination ordinance for Lower Gwinnett Township. I am proud of the board
for its insight on seeing the need to pass one, and I thank you. For the record, however, I would like to add my comments that I would have made then. For some African Americans still living in Penland Village, the memory of past discriminatory incidents may not have been may not have completely receded. And I have some examples as why. Starting in the 1950s, the court case to desegregate the deteriorating Penland School on Gwinnett Avenue, no longer standing, was disturbing and humiliating to the students and the community. Again, during the 1960s racial strife in this country, there was the bombing of the Bethlehem Baptist Church, at that time located in the predominantly African-American neighborhood at Trulin Avenue and Penland Pike. In the 1980s, a group of citizens backed by the local NAACP marched from Penland Village to the township building because they believed, true or not, that the Board of Supervisors was preventing a Black man from opening up a business in Lower Gwinnett Township. Undercurrents of discrimination still remain in many areas. Let us not forget the challenge of the changing demographics in our community. Finally, knowing the role that one has been cast into play, and by cast I mean C-A-S-T-E, cast into play, in a system that society as a whole has chosen for one to fulfill, is a very uncomfortable place to be. And that, I believe, makes it even more necessary to document when there is a change in that society. It is time to put the doubt to rest in Lower Gwinnett Township. And I rest my case. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Jones. We appreciate that. Is there any other public comments? I don't see any else online. Next up, our manager's report.
Just wanted to, for the record, just say Kathleen Hunsinger couldn't be here because of a death in their family. So I just wanted to send my condolences out to her and her family during this time. Township offices will be closed on Monday for Memorial Day. And I think that's it. Oh, one meeting a month starting next week, next month, June. So it's just the fourth Tuesday.
And the grant you wanted to say.
Oh, the grant. We did get the final grant that the township put together. We did receive word today that we did get the Monco 2040 for the second bridge on Bethlehem Pike, pedestrian bridge. We didn't get the full amount, but we got close to $80,000 on that one. So,
very good job. Thank you.
So we received that today. We'll get an official letter out, hopefully by Friday. Thank you, Jamie.
Awesome. So I think of the committees, I know Park and Rec is meeting next week and there have been no other committee meetings since our last meeting. We kind of had an update on EAC. You want to start, Tessie? Supervisor comments?
Well, I'd like to congratulate all of the new officers who have joined Lower Gwinnett's force today. I think that's a great comment on Chief Kinney's ability to meet the needs of the community and find the appropriate people to meet those needs as new officers. And I'd also like to pass my condolences to Kathleen during this time, and no other comments.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tessie. I have nothing in addition to Tessie's comments.
Mike?
I share Tessie's comments as well. Nothing additional.
I also share Tessie's comments almost in its entirety. Our next meeting of the Board of Supervisors will be June 28th, unless we have a special meeting prior. So township offices will be closed in observance of Memorial Day, as well as Juneteenth holiday. The 19th, do we have to do any formal passing to close the offices?
I think we should, the official holidays were all approved at the organization meeting, so I think a motion would be appropriate, yes.
Okay, so just as a formality at this moment to add Juneteenth to our formal holiday, I'm going to make a motion to add Juneteenth to a formal holiday for Lower Gwinnett Township. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much. So Juneteenth, the Lower Gwinnett Township will be closed. Outside of that, I share Tessie's sentiment. I want to make a motion to adjourn this meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.
Let's see if we can go to 10:30 next time.
Why don't we just bring pillows?